Hello, this is Doug Brunke, CEO of the Global Chamber. Thanks for joining us today. Today we're going to be discussing global education and training, and really appreciate you participating on this very important topic because global business is changing, the way we approach it is changing, and the ways to be successful with it are constantly changing. So how else to keep up? Certainly there's a variety of things that we're doing at the Global Chamber to help you. One of the key components of that is using resources that are out there in the community at colleges, universities, and other locations, training institutions, and we're going to be talking about those today to keep you up to date. My first interaction with training on the international scale was about 3 or 4 years after I had been involved with international business. So starting in 1986, I was doing international business. So in 1989, I went to the University of Michigan for a couple days of training on global business. I don't remember very much from that, but there were a few takeaways. One was, wow, there's a whole science around this international business. You know, some of us were not necessarily trained in international business. We were thrown to the wolves. I was a chemical engineer, kind of got involved with it, was doing it basically kind of winging it for a number of years. And then when actually sat down and listened to University of Michigan professors and people who were brought in from the community about their dealings with international business, it was somewhat startling in a good way that there was science around this, that what I had been struggling with, others were struggling with, and there were plenty of best practices to pull from. I will also admit that one of the biggest takeaways for me out of that those days at the University of Michigan was one particular fellow. I remember he was with the Lubrizol company, and he had a very unique perspective about international business, and that was forget cross-cultural, it doesn't matter, just do what you think is right. And so he ended up starting his presentation by putting his feet up on the table with the bottoms of his feet, addressing us and explaining that, hey, yes, in the Middle East, this would be problematic, but you should just do whatever you think is right, because that's the way I've done it and I've been very successful. So quite honestly, I think all of us would agree that that's probably a really bad approach. I gotta believe that fellow at some point recognized the folly of his ways, but it certainly it goes to the issues that we deal with every day with international business, and that is cross-cultural issues, taking our local business international, and what are the things that we should adjust and modify, given that we're dealing in other countries. In that particular case, again, that's an adjustment, cultural adjustment, behavioral adjustment, country to country, that undoubtedly is something that we should be doing. And in that particular case, that fellow certainly had his opinion. So that was a good and somewhat inauspicious start for me in terms of learning international education and training. I wanted to go through several other elements of international training. One is online education. We've been very fortunate over the years to have been sponsored by the online education program at Thunderbird. Thunderbird School of Global Management is historically and even today rated as number 1 or 2 in the world in terms of global business. So if you don't know about Thunderbird, you should. Their online education for executives is extraordinary. It's outstanding. Having taken some classes there, it has a full range of cross-cultural, global mindset, and business classes that we highly recommend. As far as other opportunities, we've been primarily working with the University of Utah, Michigan State University, ASU, Arizona State University, and others, and we've been impressed by all of them in terms of what they bring to the table. The quality of professors, their interaction with the community, very strong. You may be familiar with cyber. So as an Arizona District Export Council member, I was fortunate to go to the National District Export Council event just a couple months ago in Washington, D.C., and we learned more about cyber, the Center for International Business, Education, and Research. So it's an acronym, CIBER, Center for International Business, Education, and Research. There are 16 of these universities around the U.S. They basically get additional funding to focus in on international programming. The international programming by San Diego State University, Colorado University, Brigham Young University, and my own alma mater, Michigan State University. I'll focus in on Michigan State. They have over 60 international programs that address international, one of which is one that spans a variety of community colleges across the U.S. So get in touch with cyber, understand what cyber school is nearby your place of work here in the U.S. If you're international, learn more about what your local university can do. Undoubtedly, it has a study abroad program. Undoubtedly, it has continuing education program. Undoubtedly, it has actual degrees that are available to business people. So when we think about business, there's a couple different directions. One is, a BS or a BA and an MBA, so both undergraduate and graduate. There are also community colleges. Our own experience with, let's start with community colleges, is that there are a number of them across the United States that are very effective with international programming. Mesa Community College would be an example of that. Mesa is a partner of the Global Chamber, and they're actually doing videos of CEOs for us. What I found directly in my dealings with them is that they have international focus. They're ones that work with Michigan State on a broader level and making sure that the international programming is tight and excellent and up to date. And I've noticed the classes tend to be, at least at Mesa and to some degree at some of the other community colleges that I've been, is that there are international students there. So they're foreign nationals, and so it makes an interesting conversation if you're an American to participate in it, because you've got people in the classroom who are from all over the world talking about international business and bringing that perspective to the table. So highly recommend you look at the community colleges and what programs that they have. From a university perspective, we primarily, again, worked with Michigan State, University of Utah, BYU, University of Arizona, Arizona State, and Thunderbird so far. And what we've found is that all of these schools are outstanding with their business programming and have come a long way over the last 10 to 20 years in terms of their progress, in terms of their technologies, and in terms of providing a curriculum that is up to date. It used to be that these classes were taught by professors who didn't necessarily have a connection to the real world, or that's what it seemed like. However, these days, the professors tend to be doing consulting on their own, and so they have a real world business connection. Also, these universities tend to bring in CEOs and other executives to be able to provide their perspective. So all of the schools that I've mentioned certainly are outstanding in what they're able to bring to the table. And so whether you're a professional, whether you're an executive, or whether you're a student, these are all highly recommended. So that's the university and community college scene. The next area I wanted to chat about in terms of education and training is more of a training focus. So there are organizations in the community all around the world that provide training and certification on the international scale. Let's start with what countries provide. In the United States, the U.S. Commercial Service, the USCS, along with the District Export Council, provide a variety of training on exporting and taking your business international, all the way from introductory classes to taking your business online on the web. So there's a variety of courses that the U.S. government sponsors that are able to get you to the next level. From our own experience, there are a number of other countries that do this very effectively. The UK, with UKTI and other resources, or the Canadian government, also really outstanding coursework for companies to help them, particularly on the exporting side. So please become familiar with those. And of course, as a member of the Global Chamber, those are the types of resources that we're able to connect you up with and keep you up to date. The problem with companies going international and making sure that they are successful in the international world isn't hampered by the lack of information. There's plenty of information out there, and some of the resources that I just mentioned are a great example of that. However, you have some very particular issues in your business, so the question isn't getting to know what international business is all about. It's how do I take that information with some experience and then applying it to my business and being successful. So so certainly you can get a lot from your government at the national level, at the city level, at the county level, at the state level. All of these government organizations tend to provide some level of training. Again, those are things that are our connections hopefully can help provide for you to make sure that you can get involved with those. Others that are not government related include FIT, F-I-T-T, or NASBITE, or Dunlop Stone University. All of these types of private enterprise organizations are good at training, are good at certification, and are good at particularly training people on particular expertise around logistics or ITAR related issues. So there are a number of trainings and certifications that are available from the private side that are available to you as a business owner or as an executive to get you or your team up to date on the latest in all of those areas. And then finally, when we talk about what's missing, what additional activity other than education, other than these training facilities, other than what the government can provide, other than what you learn on the street and through the School of Hard Knocks, there's still something missing. So after all these years for myself, a couple decades involved with international business, after a couple of decades and realizing that still less than 1% of US companies export, and watching companies nearly 100% of the time be unsuccessful or less than successful, or maybe more appropriately suboptimally successful in their ventures, is there are still gaps. If you're a big company, you hopefully have resources to be able to do a lot of the things that you need to do to keep up with, for instance, ITAR, and to have a good web program, and to understand cross-cultural and to be familiar with those issues. Very often we have those in place in big companies, and having been in a big company for nearly 2 decades, I recognize that during those periods of times, we were pretty well set. However, we still messed up. We had people within the business teams that were not sensitive to, what it would take to grow internationally. Even though those of us that were involved with getting things done, at the end of the day, we had to pitch, executive teams on what needed to be done, and it was harder to get them up to speed. So I think big companies struggle with a different set of challenges when you're talking about international growth, different from small and medium size. With small and mediums, and having been involved with them for over 10 years, they struggle with significant resource gaps. All of the things that I talked about up until now in this conference, they don't necessarily have that access to educational resources. They don't have the budget. They often have bigger holes in their organization. So maybe they're trying to do marketing kind of on the back of a pad, and you're a kind of know how to spell marketing, but you're trying to make that work. So there are more significant holes for small and medium-sized businesses that the Global Chamber aims to provide. So this is really kind of finishing up with kind of what are all the resources that you need from an education and training perspective, and the universities, your governments, private industry, and the Global Chamber. The Global Chamber is here with more real-world interaction. And what do I mean by that? Real-world interaction, actual CEOs talking about their experience, both good and bad, in videos, in events, one-on-one in exporting circles. So whether it's in an export circle, whether it's on a video, whether it's at one of our events, we think we complete the circle relative to your full education and training. It's great to read a book. It's great to go to a class. It's great to actually go through the process of growing a business and struggling with finding partners and managing partners and taking your business international. But at the end of the day, you're being around peers that are struggling with the same issues that you are, and ideally being quite successful at it, allows you, whether it's in a circle, whether it's on a video, whether it's on an event, through the Global Chamber, allows you to elevate your game and make that book learning that much stronger. So hopefully that's given you some sense around that it's not a secret or one thing that's going to get you to the next level. It's a series of resources that will help elevate your business and then keep you going. One of the huge issues that we face, and why we're so dedicated here at the Global Chamber of connecting with you, not just at the initial point that you become a member, but on an ongoing basis, is something that we've noticed that hinders and makes people's success suboptimal. And that is, people jump in, not enough, but some people jump into the international world and start to export. But at that point, many times, because of those gaps in resources, because of gaps in understanding what needs to be done, something happens 3 months later, 6 months later. It would be perceived by someone who'd been there and done that at some point in the past that there's an issue, but you may not see the issue. And so what happens, as an example, a partner that you trusted, that you believed was going to do the job, doesn't work out. But you may not see it at the beginning of when it's starting not to work out, but find out 6, 9 months, a year, or 2 years later that you find out that something was off and you could have diagnosed that earlier. Those are the kinds of things that experience brings. Those are the kinds of things that working with resources like within the Global Chamber and around you and your company can help you get to the next level because they've seen it, they've done it, they can see that there's some sort of an issue and help guide you to get to the next level. So think of education and training as a holistic approach to growing your business. You're bringing something to the table. Your team within your company is bringing something to the table. Their education, their training, their ongoing seminars, their ongoing involvement with our activities, like on our committees, like in our exporting circles, like on our videos, like on connecting with other people who are struggling and succeeding with exporting and global business. These are all part of the ultimate puzzle that will make you incredibly successful, and certainly a lot more successful than you have been up until now. Really appreciate you listening. Really welcome your questions. Please email me at doug@globalchamber.org. Would love to hear from you. Would love to have you join our committees. You can see our committees on the globalchamber.org website. We welcome you to come by and visit and learn more about how companies are using our services to elevate their game and be incredible exporters. Thank you very much for your time, and have a great day.
Is it?